Okay, so we will be starting lecture 7 onwards from today. So basically, I would like to give a intro about test tools and some introduction about the automation, right? So then we'll be moving and hands-on activities next week onwards. Basically, throughout the session, so I will show you what are the tools and technologies available basically for the automation and tooling perspective, and then we will be moved to the automation activities that basically will be used Python as a coding language. Right? I hope you will get familiar already with Python and you could be able to work with the Python activities because Python is one of the easiest language to use for this automation. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the today's topic, right? So basically the question is, what is a test tool, right? So if you looked at software testing life cycle, so I think we have gone through the entire life cycle throughout the life cycle during the previous session. So basically we will start from the requirement gathering, and we will, so if I draw a small diagram here. So first we will have requirement understanding. As the first activity. Then we will do test design. So these are the basic activities. Then test case, right? So automation, test execution activity, test execution. So you can bring CI/CD here as well if needed. Defect reporting. So defects and results. I reduce some words to show this. Right? This will be your generic software testing life cycle, right? Workflow. So if you looked at the multiple phases, I think we discuss all these phases during our sessions. So we discuss how to do that. So you can do it manually, right? You can get some Excel sheet or Word document and do everything by your hand or manual, right? Uh, but problem is when it comes to the large projects, right? So if you are going to do these kind of things manually, it won't be easy. So it will be challenging. So if you take it as example, right? If you look at large organizations like Microsoft, IBM, Google, so think their applications, right? These are very enterprise level large applications, and they have hundreds of different large applications. So think if they are going to do everything in manually in the requirement to this execution to results everything. So whatever the manpower they might need is extremely high, and sometimes they might not be able to deliver these kind of applications within a shorter period, within expected timelines, right? So because of that, so there are a lot of reusable planning activities. There are a lot of handhold activities, writing test cases, designing tests, and automations, basically scripting and integrated and execute and report defect reporting, result report generation. All these things will be heavily manpowered activities that if you are going to get it done from humans as it is, right? So and it will be very monotonous activities as well, right? Because if you are going to do it your own yourself manually, and a lot of repeatable activities, there will be more lot of repeatable activities you might have to do multiple times, and it's a waste of your time as well. And accuracy and all those things is something challenging. So to avoid that, each phases we are actually using different tools, right? each phases, each testing phases that I mentioned here, we use tools. Basically, these tools make our life easy, fast, and it will bring more accurate results, right? So we looked at how we could be able to use it in uh, real world, right? So when it comes to the requirement understanding, so basically requirement before even use the understanding, requirement we has to be stored somewhere. Right? You can't have printed materials as a requirement, right? You can't print in documents or books or something like that, right? It has to be stored. So basically, you can write it in a Word document, but these Word documents are not something manageable and track clearly requirements. So because of that, we use various tools, right? So Jira is a one of key tool. So you might heard about, or sometimes you might heard used it as well, but there are various tools that we can use, gather the requirement and store the requirement, right? So these are one of two, right? So there are many other tools, that we can use, right? Uh, so similarly, I will put different color. Okay, so it's entire colored, right? So let me. So we can use Jira as a tool, right? So test designing, when it comes to test designing, so we discussed test design techniques, right? So there are various design tools that are available and techniques are available that you can use. For even test design, even you did the design, you need to store these designs. So you can use mind maps, right? Uh, Something like pairwise algorithm. So these kind of things you can use as tools or technologies, right? So there are various tools, right? So I'm not going to dive. So when it comes to test case writing, right? So you can write it in your Excel sheet or Word document, but it may be challenging if you are going to track, right? So you might have to manually have the traceability. So because of that, we can use there are various platforms. So Jira itself support test case writing activity. You can store test cases in Jira, but you need to use some plugins if you're going to use Jira. And there are some tool called TestLink. There are various tools, there are open source and proprietary tools. You can store these test cases, right? And you can have it the map directly to the Jira requirement, right? If you have your stories, user stories, you can map Jira stories to the mind map and you can map it to the Jira test cases. Give me a second. Okay, sorry for the distracted. Okay, so Jira test cases we can use. Right? Right? So you can have a correct mapping. So then once you've done the Jira test cases, so it's actually come as a test case and right, you will have the automation. So for that, again, you have to use the tools. There are various tools, Selenium, Playwright. Sorry, I think I'm doing. This is undo is not working. This okay. Let me rewrite it again. I will I this. Something like this. Okay, you can have tools. Yes, link. Yes, link. So he can use Selenium, Playwright. These are popular ones I'm writing here for the moment. CI/CD you can use Jenkins. Execution you can do again this Jenkins and CI/CD, and there are very different tools as well. You can use some bots, right? So CI/CD, then reporting again you can use various reporting tools like Extend Report, something like these kind of plugins are there, right? So various reports you can use. Right? So this is basically usage of tools, right? So these are few samples I just want to mention, right? So let's move this, give a high level understanding. These tools make our life fast and easier, right? We'll go a little deep dive further. Okay. Basically, so if you are going to use test tools, right? So basically these are the activities we expect, right? There should be a repetitive, some resource demanding tasks, and there should be a lot of tasks that is difficult to run manually, and a lot of manual activities need additional support and reliability of testing, and all this and improve consistency, and all this will help to decide the tool, right? So basically, so so the things that I previously mentioned, the requirement storing, test risk case storing, test execution results storing, and report generations, all these are we consider as a test management activities. And defect reporting, so I think that's one thing we forget it. So we have to report the defects as well, defect reporting, and all these are and CI/CD, all these are considered as a test management, right? So there are various tools that integrate various different tools together and have a common management platform. So Jira is one a good example for test management or either any management activity in the software development. So they can manage various workflows and various tools get together and drive end-to-end automation or end-to-end process automation or end-to-end software development process automation activities, right? So that's the value of basically tools, right? So these are some different supporting tools, right? So IntelliJ IDEA, Eclipse, and PyCharm, right? So I'll be using PyCharm for future activities, but IntelliJ and Eclipse basically used for Java, and PyCharm that we basically use for the Python. So these are IDEs. So these are again tools, right? So these are supporting tools. So when it comes to test designing, and this is a very good concept. So you can do test designing based on the models. So if you have been asked, right, and automate certain number of test cases for application. Rather looking at application based on the requirement, you can develop a model like a build a protocol prototype. So similarly, developers are building their actual code. You can build a fake code, or you can build a simulator kind of thing. You can build a prototype, and using that prototype, you can generate your test cases and automation scripts. So that if you are going to do such thing, so we call model-based testing. That actually introduced before these LLMs. So LLMs also use this concept, basically this current AI so large language models also kind of these concept has used right now. So this model-based testing introduced before, just before the LLM introduced into this software development life cycles, right? So, but now I think model-based testing mostly moving to the AI model-based testings, right? So previously this is not AI model, but these are just generic models that simulate existing applications. So this is a different concept that we use. Actually, even I have used some organizations. So these kind of model-based testing activity tools and technologies for certain deliver certain function testing activities, and it will be very fast and it will give very good results, and we could be able to test. So this is a different concept that, but again, these kind of things we use tools, right? And tool. So executions, again, we have to use tools, right? If you want to use execution, you can have various results you will get, and base your results you will get based on the execution results, right? So for that, you can use CI/CD tools, Jenkins, or Azure DevOps, or something kind of tools, right? So then other one is, so if you want to do the performance testing or non-functional testing, we'll discuss detail on non-functional part later in a different topic, different lecture. But if you are going to do performance testing, if you are going to put large load or volume to your application, you need to use these kind of different tools. You can't do it manually, right? So again, these also require set of tools. So basically, the last point I just saw, the I think automation, right? So basically, the test automation mainly rely on the tools, right? You can't do automation without have tools and technologies, right? So when it comes to when you go little deep dive, so if you are going to use automation, if you're going to do test automation, or if you're going to automate your test cases and run automatically, so there are certain benefits and risks as well. So as a benefits, uh, so if you have automation, sometimes the cost will be high, and you might need to pay for when tools and pay for the higher cost for the people who are going to automate. And sometimes if you are going to use open source products, sometimes these application might not continue, and it might get uh, stop, suspend at one point. Well, those are the challenges. But at the same time, if you are going to automate, your manual activities will be get automated, and you could be able to do the repetitively with a less effort, and consistency will be high, because when something you execute two times, consistency will be different, right? First time execution you do some certain way, the next second time you will do another way. But if you are automated, so you have the greater consistency, and more objective assessments, and you can do, and statics, more correct stats about testing you can generate very easily, and there are many benefits. So these are very few I just taken. So because of that, so test automation has become one of key fundamental requirement in software testing. And basically, test automation can allow us to run the test automatically, manage test data, get the test results, everything we can get automated. Right? So, and it will be automated, complete entire manual process, and we can have more formalized uh, testing approach with the test automation. So that's why people like to do test automation in every and each project, right? Basically benefits, right? So these are few benefits. So there are a large amount of benefits. Few benefits actually are you can save your time and money, right? You can increase test coverage. You can, especially the accuracy, right? Because there are no human errors will introduce to your test result. If human is executing the test case or writing test cases, so there will be human errors, right? We do mistakes, right? So these kind of mistakes we will not appear, they will not occur. So when you are doing the automation, and there are certain tests we can't do in manually because if, as I mentioned, if performance testing, or if you want to put a large load, if you want 10,000 users to concurrently log into application and see how it's working. You can't find out 10,000 people, right? And ask to log into them at the same time. That won't work. So then you have to simulate 10,000 user load. To simulate, you need to have tools, right? Virtually, you have to generate the load. If you want to millions of data records, you can't just have the actual data. You have to mimic the data. So then you need to have the tools. Right. If you are going to integrate with your automation suite with the code base and execute nightly, so you have to have tools. If you want to generate reports automatically, you need to have tools. Right? So there are various values. So and if you can have an automation suite, so you can run it every night and you can make sure your product is very stable. Right? And it will help development and QA team morale as well because you have a better product at the end. Right? So these are the few values, but there are large amount of benefits when you are going to do the test automation. The problem is, so though we people say automation is really good, automation has these values, or but there are challenges. So we need to figure it out what activities, what tests we should automate. That's a fundamental problem we will get when we decided to automate. Because there are certain tests they might not have much value of automating. Basically, you need to find out ROI, return of investment. You need to find out what is the return of investment by doing this. So in our life, right, real world life, we do everything by looking at the return of investment, right? If you're going to buy, if you decided to do a degree in IT, you have a ROI calculated, right? So what is the return of value I'm getting by doing such a degree or something like that, right? So you do that math in your mind, and then you will similarly, if you're going to do automate, if you're going to automate your test cases, you have to do that math. To do that, you need to consider these few activities. One thing is repeatable. So it has to be repeatedly executable, right? There should have a lot of repeatability that you need to run various. So how repeatable it comes? So think you want to develop a mobile app that should support Android and iOS. So basically, you need to test your application on both Android and iOS, but same test case. So that's the repeatability come. So think you have to develop a web application that should support four browsers: Chrome, Edge, Safari, and Firefox, right? So then you have to run the same test case against all these four browsers, unless you don't know whether your application is working in all four browsers or not. So that comes repeatability, right? So in such scenario, if you have automated test cases, you just execute it, right? You don't need to manually execute multiple times. It's very easy. So there are certain test cases. Expected result is very clear, determined. Because if it is determined, then you know what you're expecting. So then you can very easily automate and check it. But non-deterministic case, There are certain tests now non-deterministic. The reason is because of the AI. Because if your application use the AI model, your results are non-deterministic, right? That's depend that we don't know, right? So that's a challenging. That's a very challenging. So then you need to use. You can't automate such a thing because your results are unexpected, right? Expected result is unexpected, right? So that's challenging. So then it's challenging, right? So and similarly unopinionated. So there are some cases your opinion is required, right? So think if you are going to test UI checks what is the most coolest UI for your eye or colors that you can't automate, right? Because your eye says to your mind, this color is good, this color is bad, something like that, right? So then is our opinion-based test cases. You can run opinion-based test cases automate, right? So you have to unopinion based test cases. You need to figure it out. And there are test cases which load and volume that definitely you can. And there are certain test cases role based because same login functionality you have to do the various users, admin user, power users, generic users, maybe hundreds of user types. Then rather manually running hundreds times your login functionality, you can use the automated test case and run it same test cases for 100 users automatically. So that's it. So as I mentioned, cross browser, cross environment. Yeah. So some application we might try to run on Windows, Linux, and various operating. So that's very tough. So till one, so in my real life, I had a project in very sometime long time back actually that they have a application that we test. That application can be deployed on basically 12 operating systems. I couldn't remember exactly that 12, but basically Windows, they have three versions those days, Windows, various versions, right? And Linux, Red Hat Linux, and SUSE Linux, and Truth 64, AIX, Sun Solaris, that is not available now. So, and there are various languages, right? Sorry, various operating systems. So almost 12 operating system application should support on 12. And that application can deploy on three different type of web servers, WebLogic, WebSphere, and I could remember the one. So three different uh, web servers. And that application identify three different nine different languages in this world, like English, French, German, Arabic, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, something like that. I could remember the nine languages like that. And same time that application supposed to deploy on six databases like Oracle, MySQL, SQL, um, DB2, right? Flat file, something like that. So can you imagine the number of combinations coming in, right? So same test suite has to execute all these platforms before go live. So it's tough and we can't do it manual. So that entire testing is automated for that project. All the test cases are automated, even backend test cases and UI test cases and various user role test cases. All these tests, even deployment is automated. So we automatically deploy it in various these platforms and test it and get the results. So we have to do that. We have to bring that automation that level if there are such repeatable activities, right? So that's where we can identify which test case can be automate, which test case useless of automating. So that's basically the ROI you have to calculate. So these are the factors you need to consider. So basically, test once you decide, you can start scripting. But script has the basic same steps that we do the test cases, right? So you should have test data, you have the precondition, test steps, verification, expected result. So the few things that you need to think about is once you have done the script. So think you have run, you have scripted 100 test cases, right? So these 100 test cases, once you automated it, so think you are running every night. Think in the middle of the execution, maybe once you have completed the 50th test case, system got crashed due to a defect or something like that. So what will happen to your automatic execution? So 50th is in between 50th test case is got crash, and it will end that 50th test case and it will move to this 51. So since application got crashed, you don't have application to run the 51, 52, 53 and the remaining test cases. So because of that, all your test cases will get failed. If this happened at the second test case itself, then you will not only have only one test case result by night, right? So no point of running such a scenario if you are having a failure and your execution got disrupted on the middle of the night, then next day morning you don't have the results. So those are very challenging points that frequently happen when they're doing the test automation. So to avoid that, we need to bring some intelligence for the automation. Right? That's the most important thing. We should have some intelligence to understand whether application got all of the sudden, whether application got crashed, or all of the sudden additional pop-up message come. Additional warning message appeared in the application, maybe due to the bug. So then you need to handle that scenario. Your script should intelligent enough to handle you face a unexpected scenario where application got crashed, additional error message pop up, or something went wrong. So then your test script should be able to recover the process and she need to make sure the next test case can be executed from that point onwards. That intelligent that we don't know at what point it is going to fail in real life and what is the reason, all unpredicted reasons. So your automation should have kind of AI. Even not now. Now we are discussing about the AI everywhere, but even I can remember I started my career as automation engineer in 2003. That even that time we built some AI for all our scripts because unless they will get fail in the middle of the execution and you might not be able to continue remaining test cases. So bringing AI to a automation is a fundamental requirement. Even now it's very easy because there are so many tools and techniques. But even very old days, we have to build AI for automation. So scripting or making automation is very easy, but bring this intelligent to automation script is very extremely challenge. It's challenging than development. Right. So that's why automation is a challenging than development activity. Right. Okay. So because of that, we need to have test data cleanup scripts and some AI intelligent has to be built it up for our two suits. So that's very essential unless our test cases will get fail and no point and will not get ROI that expected from the test automation. Right? So because of that, these are very key factors we need to think about when you are scripting. But the scripts contain regular test cases. But in addition to the regular test case, the intelligent is something we expected to include inside the script to understand what happened and scenarios and continue based on the situation. Okay. So up to now, is it clear? So what I have, these all points are really valid when we are deciding and we are moving to transformations, right? Okay, these are set of automation tools. So Selenium is a kind of a framework. So Selenium is not exactly a tool, but it's a very popular one. Currently, I can't say is the best tool, but in industry, especially in Sri Lanka, I can't say it's industry, but especially in Sri Lanka, it's very popular one, right? So Selenium can be used with Selenium framework plus. You can't stand alone, you can't use Selenium. You need to have some supporting structure. You need to have programming language and you need to have a test framework. So as a test framework, you can use TestNG and Java and language as a Java with the Selenium. Or you can use Python as a language and PyTest as a test framework for a Selenium. So both options are available, right? So there are other tools like UTP. So that's one of famous tool. IBM Rational Functions is also one of famous, but those are proprietary tools. Those are not open source. But Selenium is an open source one. And there are open source tool called Appium, right? And now we have one of most popular tool that's everybody's talking about, the Playwright. So that's because of the AI. So the Playwright has a strong integration via the MCP, model context protocols, that we know that the more the agents can be integrated, right? AI agents can be integrated via the MCPs, right? The models context protocols. So Playwright has that capability, and we can easily integrate with Copilot, and we can auto generate all the automations. That's the key reason Copilot Playwright getting more popular right now. So I think so I will show some small demo on this as well at latter part of sessions. So how AI and Playwright can be integrated. So, and Cypress is also one of our key tool that people would like to use. Uh, but if you looked at this landscape, so Selenium is a one of popular tool. So especially in the Sri Lankan context, right? I can't say it's a global context. But Appium kind of tool you can use if you want to do the mobile automation. But UTP and IBM Russian Consult are proprietary tools, commercial tools, but they are very popular. They also popular tools. But now in the industry, Cypress also is kind of a little bit popular one. But now industry, like everybody is moving to the Playwright. So that's the industry trend now. The everybody want to learn Playwright, want to use Playwright. I think the key reason behind is that it has the capability of the integrate with some other AI agents and auto generations, and a lot of new abilities are there with that. So that's the key reason. Any do you have any exposure to these tools? If you have your own thoughts, you can share. So, or either if you have any questions about the tooling, you can ask even now. No, don't you have any? Okay. So then let's move on. So I think this is one of key area I need to take your attention. Um, so when it comes to the automation, so most of the time people think uh, we can automate UI largely, and it will help. That's I also seen in the industry, many people think QA should automate majority of test cases. But when it comes to rest, you can little omit and you can have lesser test cases. Most of the time people think like this. Uh, so automation should be like this. UI or front end right? Should have large amount of test cases. So I think I remember I mentioned that about the 19,000 test cases scenario I mentioned. So one of team has written 90,000 test cases, right? So that front end UI or functional test cases. I think that's where the wrong comes, right? That they think the majority of the even leadership has thought majority of testing cover this functional aspects, but it's wrong. The majority of automated test cases should unit tests. So developers should do the testing, right? If that's where the shift left comes, right? If developer has write own test cases and automated it, majority of application functionality will work better. So then it comes to service level. So that means API or web services level. So that either QA or dev both can do. This is white box testing. So we call about whiteboard testing. This is gray box. So anybody can do some So this is black box. Right? So these mainly white box testing. So the unit test has to be automated. Ideally, every unit test case should automate. There can't have any any manual unit test because developers can do it. But with AI now, so if you looked at it like a co-pilot, right? If you use the co-pilot for your development, you can generate your own all unit test cases using Copilot without having any. I know the previously developers are very lazy on writing unit test cases and developing, but now with this AI, you can generate your all unit test cases. But once you have done the code, you can send your codes to the LLM and ask him to generate all the unit test cases. You will get thousands of unit test cases and make sure your code is perfect. Right? So you can have a large amount of automation unit tests. Then now it's very easy, but sometimes back it was not the case. It was very painful activity. That's why people reluctant to do that. That reason increase a lot of bugs. But if you have larger automated unit test cases, you can make sure you have less bugs. Then service level. This is the area people are forgetting most of the time. They are not doing the service level automation, but ideally you need to do the web service level automation, service level automation. Then you can make sure the remaining defects that you unable to find from the unit level, you can find at this phase. So if you have automated test suite here, the service level, you can find a lot of defects. But unfortunately, the problem in the industry is they have very less amount of unit test case and very less amount of API level or web service level test cases. Because of that, lot of bugs has to find up UI level. That's very time consuming and money consuming. Running here multiple automation suites is are not something acceptable. So this should be ideal scenario that we need to have. Uh, in automation testing concept or even testing consideration of testing techniques as well, right? So testing methodology. So basically majority of tests should be unit and then service level and the large one UI. And that's how you need to automate the test cases as well. Is this clear? Or if you are not agree with this point, you can argue or you can have different ideas, you can share. This is what we expected as a shift left as well. If we have more unit test cases, more acceptance test cases at developer level, you can have a better product at it. Okay, is this clear? Any questions? Anything that you want to challenge me or okay, so good. So if you go to the number perspective, this is industry numbers I taken. So basically 70% of testing. If you have 100 test cases, 70% of test cases you need to cover unit level, structure level or component level or code level. 20% of test cases need to cover in service level and 10% test cases you need to cover in end-to-end level or functional level or UI level. Black box, right? So basically this is black, this is gray and this is white, but we can consider whatever the things. But basically this how should be. 70% of tests has to cover at the developer level. So unfortunately, the industry is still not achieving these numbers. That's why we still seeing a lot of bugs at the production, right? But this is expectation of shift left. One kind of expectation. We have to shift as much as possible the left side to get a better quality. So that's a concept, right? So if we can shift left to your entire process, you can have a better left. If you can move to the left side in your vision, you can have a better value output, right? So that's the theory. But I don't think industries come to a certain level. So that's why industry has a lot of defects and a lot of problems in the application we release for the production or life. So basically, if you push as much as possible to the left side, you will get a better investment, right? Better ROI. Okay, the next thing is, so next quick area I want to cover is frameworks, right? So if you are going to automate scripts, you can just automate your scripts, but it doesn't help. If you have just a set of automation test cases and you are going to run it every day, these automated test cases one by one or batch wise, that doesn't give a meaningful. So it's not maintainability. It not be you reuse. You want to have reusability and all this. Because of that, we have to have a automation framework. Frameworks gives the more validity, more advancedness to the automation suite. Why we need framework is basically if you look at automation suite, test suite, you need to store your test data, either Excel sheet or DB or flat file, text file or something like that. And you need to call test data from these files. And you need to have a lot of reusable things, login functionality, report validations or comparisons, right? All these are common. Every test case you have to do the comparison, text comparison, image comparisons, right? To whether actual and expected results are valid. You can build up a lot of common methods that you can reuse. That reusability should have. So if you are going to build common methods, you need to have a common libraries. There are certain place to store these common libraries in your coding, in your framework. And if you are going to capture test results, you need to have a place to store these images as a result, right? And your detailed results. And if you have a structure to store detailed results and if we get the result report generated. And there are various active functionalities you need to do in automation. And because of that, you need to have a framework. Without having a framework, you can't do that. Right? The framework is a very essential thing that support coding standards, test data handling, object repositories, storing test data, and access external resources and various things, right? Something like that. So that will require. So if you are going to do the automation. So the reason is, so, and benefits also, you can improve test efficiency because you have a lot of reusable activities. You have to minimum number of coding you need to do day to day. So because of that, efficiency will go up. And low maintenance cost because of your work is less because of you are using a lot of reusables activity libraries and plugins and all those things that you develop, that then you have a maintenance cost. And less manual intervention, right? You can manage very easily, and you can increase your coverage very easily, and reusability, so as I mentioned, reusability will have. So these are few benefits, and there are many others, but these are few identified benefits. So frameworks perspective, so we have various different type of frameworks as well, right? So linear, modular, library, data-driven, keyword-driven, and hybrid. Those are few frameworks, right? So linear framework means you have multiple scripts and you call multiple scripts using a one driver script. You have one main scripts that call these scripts and run it. That's a linear. So modular driven. You segregate your test scripts as per module. So if you have login module, login. If you have payment module, it's payment. If you have billing module, if it's billing. If you have dashboard module, if you can have multiple functionalities. As a modules, inside the module, you can have multiple scripts. And you can store multiple scripts inside module, and each sub modules you can call separately. Or you can call all the modules together. So something like that. That's a modular driven architecture. These are very old frameworks. Those are right now we don't use actually. Another one is a data driven. So think if you want to test login functionality for 100 users, different various user combinations, you can have a test driven framework. You can store your 100 users in a DB or Excel sheet and call same script will call multiple times this data and execute and validate. That's we call data driven. If you want to run the same login functionality for 1,000 users. You can add all the 1,000 users for Excel sheet and read it and run it multiple times. Right? So that's the data driven. So keyword driven. So think the some activities always you will have a login button and you will have multiple buttons. So you might have to click these buttons. So to click these buttons, you can develop a keyword called click and write a code. So if you want to click any button, you can call click keyword and click any buttons. Right? Within your programming language code, within your automation script, you can build a keywords, click, type, enter, close, maximize window, minimize window, these kind of keywords. And you can define what these keywords should do. Click on a button. You can write a code to click on a button and you just map it to the keyword called click. And sooner you call the keyword click in your script, it automatically click the button available in the script. Something like that. Maximize the screen, minimize the screen. You can define keywords, right? And you can put your code inside the keywords and call the keywords within your scripts. That we call keyword driven automation. So all these automation types are useful, but now in the industry we don't use one single automation type alone, right? So we basically use all these automation types together. Now we use databases, we use flat file, we use main scripts, we use modular scripts, we will data driven, we will just keyword driven all together. And now we call a hybrid framework. So we use hybrid frameworks in automation, everything inclusive framework. So I will show how to develop such a framework. But that with the Python, that will be required to automation. So that's the hybrid automation framework is the currently we use. So these are few tool stack and technology stacks available. The Selenium, we can use Java, Python, and mostly we can use it. The Playwright, we can use Java, Python, or Play TypeScript, so many different. Cypress, we can use JavaScript. Puppeteer, you can use JavaScript. Web-driven IO, Drive IO is JavaScript. But I think Selenium is one of the most popular one, but Playwright is becoming very popular these days with this AI. I think that's how it has been started popularity. Okay. So these are some popular frameworks and tool stacks and technology stacks. So the last part, I think I just want to know. So AI part I'm going to cover it differently, but I want to tell there are certain tools now we have low code automations or no code automation. Do you heard about low code, no code platforms in development? We have large amount of no code, low code platforms like SharePoint, these kind of platforms, Pega, and there are platforms you don't have to code. You can plug and play and implement your product. Similarly, we have low code, no code automation frameworks as well, right? So Tosca, Xelo, TS2, Xelo, DTA, those are these kind of platforms. But unfortunately, none of these platforms are freely available. These are proprietary platforms. But if you have a large organization, you can buy this and then you don't need to code it. You can just simply uh, develop your automation scripts with the low code platform without coding. Right? You don't need to code. But now I am pretty sure these low code, no code platforms also will get die with this AI because of the now especially Playwright and Copilot integration. So we can do this now, right? So I am pretty sure rest of other LLMs will integrate certain to open source tools and they get generated the code very soon, very easily. So because of that, this scriptlet platforms or no code, low code platforms also are getting died in future. But right now still they are usable and many organizations are used, right? So basically, this is the base about automation we should know. So next part is we need to see how we could automate each aspect of testing. So basically, how to do the unit test automation, how to do the service test automation, how to do the UI automation. That I will do upcoming sessions, right? Unit level, service level, and UI level. So for that, you need to have some knowledge of Python. So that's why initially I shared some material. I will share it and try to learn yourselves and try to do the exercise I given. So, and that will help you to brush up your Python knowledge and you get ready for the next week's sessions, right? From next week onwards, it will be hands-on, completely hands-on, right? Okay. Any questions, anything? So we'll be starting from unit, then we'll move to service and UI. And we will do a little bit of BDD, TDD, and few other techniques. And AI, and last we'll work with the AI part of software testing. So that's how it will be going to cover remaining part of sessions. Any questions or anything? Okay, the next part, I think Python part, I will be starting with next week with the hands-on. So for that, you can have your get ready yourselves. Uh, do you have any questions so far? Okay, if you don't have anything, I think we can wind up today's session. So hopefully get ready for the next week's session. Do some Python exercise yourselves and come because it will be easy for you to digest the sessions. If you don't have anything, I think we can wind up today's session. But please try some Python exercises, at least the exercise I have given, and come. But if you want any support, you just drop me a note so I could be